What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome on into a live edition of the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here running through some of the, I wouldn't say post-free agency, but like post-big first wave of free agency news and rumors out there. I think you guys will get a real good treat out of that. Plus, we're going to react to not only Mel Kiper's post-free agency mock draft, but also Daniel Jeremiah's, both NFL draft gurus, insiders, whatever you want to call them. And then last but certainly not least, we have a mailbag coming up. So if you have any questions at all regarding free agency, trades, the draft, get those questions in the chat right now. Super chat, we guarantee it gets on screen, or just use hashtag Broncos somewhere in your message, and that way producer Moose can pull it and put it on screen for everyone watching to see it. But we will spend the first 5 or so minutes letting the audience build up because I know people tend to run a little bit behind. Shout out your city for me in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Always fun to see how far and wide Broncos Country stretches. So don't be a stranger. Shout out your city for me in the chat. Let's see where everyone is watching from today. We got a good audience right from the jump. Appreciate everyone for hanging out with us on a Tuesday afternoon, as Denver has been not a low-key team this offseason. They've made some, sizable moves. They made some notable adjustments or additions, but they may not have the head coach or quarterback search that really drives a lot of the offseason storylines. Paul is in Toronto. Ernie is in San Diego. Reginald is watching from New Jersey. I've got Albuquerque, New Mexico here. DeAndre is in Chicago. Conway, Arkansas in the house. Michael's in Pueblo. Spam is in London, UK. I think there's London, Kentucky, I'm pretty sure. There's a handful of Londons, I think, around the country. Corpus Christi, Texas here. Fresno, California. Keep getting those cities in the chat as Coach Chris. Coach Chris, great to see you. Hope you enjoyed our live coverage last week, which for anyone watching that was watching our live, free agency coverage last week, what an all-time week that was in terms of, at times, things being dry in terms of Broncos signings and trades and things like that, especially after they made all their big moves the first day, except for Evan Engram. But, man, we had some big hitters come out later on in free agency, if you know what I mean. Titusville, Florida here. I'm the biggest Broncos fan in Canada. There we go. We got some oldies being tossed into the chat. Love to see it. Luis is in Washington. Joe is in Denver, Colorado. Okay. Continue to shout out your city for me. I do have one more question I want to ask, and then we'll start getting, this plane off the ground. The Broncos made 3 notable additions. That's a fair way to put it. Pair of 49ers, along with a tight end. So I want to know from you, who was your favorite signing? Was it Talanoa Hufanga? Was it Dre Greenlaw? Was it Evan Engram? Let me know in the comment section below which one of these 3 players was your favorite signing. For me, it probably actually goes in the order that they signed. Hufanga, Greenlaw, Engram. And that's reflected in not just the guaranteed money, but the total contract. Hufanga, $45 million. Greenlaw, $31 million. Engram, $26 million. And I think this is a good example of you get what you pay for. You wanted an all-pro safety? Bingo. You wanted a reliable inside linebacker? Gotcha. You wanted a new tight end target for Bo Nix? Check. I like all 3 of these signings, but I would definitely put them in this order right here, with Hufanga being my favorite because of the ceiling he is capable of reaching that can, I wouldn't say transcend Denver's defense. I don't think Denver's defense needs transcending, but it can push them over the top. And it can make life miserable for players like, Patrick Mahomes, who they play twice a season, maybe 3 times if they get a shot at them in the postseason. Evan Engram appears to be one of the more preferred free agent signings here. Michael says Greenlaw. Adam is with me on Talanoa Hufanga. Prodigy says Greenlaw. Golden Air, when did we sign KJ Cloyd? He was one of the future signings, if I remember correctly. That was a while ago, but after the season ends, every single team puts 15 players on their future roster, futures contract for the 90-man. And I always forget all those names. And then when I'm looking at the depth chart in January or in March, I'm like, where did this guy come from? Like, oh, I did not even realize he signed here back in like January, 12th or something. All right, let's not waste any more of your time. Over 100 people watching. Make sure you like the video if you haven't yet, and get your questions in. We're going to have a mailbag at the end of the show. So if you want to guarantee your question or your take or your idea gets on screen, super chat, and we'll throw it on for all of our wonderful, wonderful viewers to see. If you're unable to super chat, that's not a problem. Just use hashtag Broncos. That way our software can find your question from the chat, pull it, and put it on screen for everyone watching to see. So any question about free agency, trades, the NFL draft, whatever it may be, hashtag Broncos or super chat. All right, we've got some news and rumors regarding free agency on tap for everyone today. Then I want to react to not only Mel Kiper's post, first big wave of free agency mock, but also Daniel Jeremiah, the godfathers of the NFL draft in a lot of ways, if you will, or NFL mock drafts in a lot of ways, if you will. And then that mailbag I've been preaching about. So all that coming up. Make sure you get your questions in. Like the video if you haven't already. We got 27 likes. Can we get to 30 likes? Once we get to 30 likes, we can get our first segment underway. I promise you guys are going to get a good kick out of it. It has some very positive, reinforcing news, we'll say, for some of these signings the Broncos made in free agency. 2 likes to go. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. That way we can jump into segment number 1. Mr. Moustakas, we ready to roll on segment number 1?
Just about, but I wanted to give my congratulations to Broncos Country and yourself on some excellent free agent signings. I have to say, I was a big fan of the Dre Greenlaw one. That was massive. Evan Engram is a huge need. Listen, the Broncos, sneaky team to win the AFC West next year. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, the Chiefs can't win it forever. So at some point, they've got to get knocked off their ledge, and it would be pretty nice if that happened in 2025. But we shall see. All right, here we go. 35 likes. Now we can get this show on the road. We got our first segment coming up, kind of some of the free agency news that's trickled out since the signings have been made, and we put ink to paper. So I'm ready. If you guys are ready, and if Moose is ready, then we're all ready. So let's get on the show. What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with some follow-up news after Dre Greenlaw signed that I think Broncos fans are really going to enjoy and sink their teeth into, because we got some good confirmation that this was a nice, to put it lightly, signing by the Broncos. I heard an interview of Adam Schefter talking about how the Niners are having some regret over letting Greenlaw leave. Here's what Schefter said. I think they killed it. It worked out as well as it could have. Talking about the Broncos. The Niners were trying to get back Dre Greenlaw even after Denver had an agreement done with him. They were trying to flip his decision. This is music to my ears, because if you're not a huge league-wide NFL fan, if you're just like, I only watch the Broncos, and I really only keep up with the Broncos, I don't have time to keep up with all 31 other teams, and free agency gets here, you might be lost a little bit onto who's good and who's not. Who should you sign and who should you pass on? And there's always one great measurement stick to know if you made a good signing or not. Is the opposing team and their fan base upset that they lost that player? In this case, they are. Now, this is not any kind of case of tampering. There's that 2-day of legal tampering period. So the Broncos, in that 2-day legal period, signed Greenlaw. He actually couldn't sign anything until Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, when the new league year begins. And we have seen players change their mind. It happened this year. I think Samaje Perine changed his mind. Remember, Randy Gregory was going to come back to the Cowboys, and then he flipped over to the Broncos. So this stuff does happen from time to time. But you've got the 49ers on their knees begging for Greenlaw to change his mind. And you know Sean and George Payton were grinning, knowing, hey, there's a front office that's got a good head on their shoulders. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they know what they're doing. They've been in a couple of Soupies, some NFC Championship games. They know what it takes when it comes to putting together a solid roster. And the fact that they were doing everything they can to bring Greenlaw back, it just goes to show how great of a signing it was. So if you're a fan of the signing, show me by liking the video. If I could like my own video twice, I'd do it. I'd be that thirsty for myself. That's how much of a signing, of an admiration I have for the Denver Broncos signing of Greenlaw, because I think he is going to be a standout player in the middle of this defense. I know that the last season doesn't look great for Greenlaw. Only played 2 games, recovering from the Achilles injury from the previous Super Bowl. But go back to 2023 with me. Go back to 2022 with me. And this is a linebacker that was overshadowed because he was working next to, a couple of really good players you might have heard of from time to time. Talanoa Hufanga being one of them. Just a few guys like that. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, just some nobodies here. It's in there. Scroll up a little bit. So Greenlaw, if you really take a look at what he was able to do in 2023, this is a season I'd rather focus on because he actually played pretty much the entire year. And here are his PFF grades, which we shared on an episode a few days ago. He ranked 23rd out of 82. So you're getting a top quarter percentile linebacker, top third percentile linebacker, and you're paying him basically 1 year, $11 million in change. Because the way the contract is structured, there's no guaranteed money outside of $2 million for 2026. So if you don't get the healthy version of Greenlaw, I'll be the first one to admit I was wrong about it, and I thought it'd be better than it worked out. But I'm confident I won't have to make that statement because I believe 2 years removed from that Achilles injury, he's going to look like the guy who played out of his mind in 2023 and 2022. So, the former 5th-round pick in 2019 out of Arkansas has got a good home in Denver. I'm excited to see what he can do over the course of his career with the Broncos. I expect it to be a career longer than just 1 or 2 seasons. I'll go on the record and say right now, I believe Dre Greenlaw will be a Denver Bronco for at least 4 seasons. I think a second contract will be coming his way, and I think for the short term, it's going to do wonders for this Denver defense. Not that the inside linebacker position was dreadful last year. Cody Barton did a good job of filling in for Singleton. Stranao was able to hold his own, but you were looking to improve, and you made an improvement. Greenlaw is better than the 2 guys you had back there last year. You get Singleton back from an injury, and you got 2 adequate run stoppers to say the least, but on top of that, 2 guys that can help out a lot in coverage as well. Greenlaw more so than Singleton, but you got a nice, what's the black and white cookie? The yin and yang cookie? From Seinfeld, the one that got, I think it was Elaine sick. The black and white cookie? Okay, yeah. So, Singleton is going to be flying all over the field, gobbling up running backs. Greenlaw is not bad at run stopping, but he's also great when it comes to coverage for an inside linebacker. And these 2 players are going to complement one another very nicely. So let me know, of the 3 notable signings by the Broncos, which one was your favorite? Hufanga, Greenlaw, or Engram? As much glazing as I've done for Greenlaw in the last 5 minutes, Hufanga is still my favorite because of the ceiling level, but I think we're going to see a new side of Dre Greenlaw. And now that he's not in the shadow of Fred Warner, he's going to show the NFL he is one of the better up-and-coming linebackers in this game. Now, next up on the show, I want to switch gears almost completely, like a 180. Instead of being on my knees and basically ripping the skin off of you-know-what, let's talk about something that did not sit very well with the folks over at the 33rd Team. It's a media company, let's call it a company, that covers the NFL, and it's compiled of a couple of former execs and coaches and things like that. I don't consume too much of their content to give you a better description than that. But they had the 9 worst free agent signings. Why not 10? I don't know. So let's run through it. Starting at number 9, our old friend, Javonte Williams. If you're expecting Williams to be a 1,000-plus yard rusher for you, then yeah, it's not a very good signing. When you factor in that he cost them $3 million, this seems a little bit harsh. Dante Jackson coming in at number 8. All right, moving along. Darius Slay. I don't know. Steele's got some good play out of Patrick Peterson. I think Slay can still play at the NFL level. Aaron Banks, I agree with. I think this was a massive overpay by Green Bay. He wasn't that great for the Niners, and they're paying him to be a really, really key piece, really good key piece of their offensive line. And then we land at number 5, and they got Talanoa Hufanga. So let's discuss whether or not this was truly a bad signing by the Broncos. You can already tell what my opinion is going into this after what I said 2 minutes ago, but let me try and find a neutral point here and lay out the facts, and then we'll start giving opinions. So here are the facts. 1, he signed a 3-year, $45 million deal. That's an average of $15 million a season with $20 million guaranteed. I look at it as a 2-year, $20 million. So if you really don't like the signing, you're only locked in for $20 million, which will probably be completely consumed by the end of the second year. Now, we have to, once again, acknowledge the facts that the injury concerns for Hufanga are fair. The guy has missed 17 games over the past 2 seasons. All right, he's basically missed an entire year if you can combine 2023 and 2024. His 2023 season was off to a great start. In 10 games, he had 3 interceptions. Keep in mind, the season prior, he had 4 and 17. He was going to be back-to-back all-pro safety, but he tore his ACL, comes back in 2024, doesn't quite look like his pre-injury self, and then he battles with a wrist injury and some other little injuries, and he ended up missing more time this past year than when he tore his ACL in 2023. So, looking at the facts, yeah, I understand that the contract is not tiny for a player that's missed time over the past 2 years. But now I'm going to inject my opinion. I don't give a damn. The guy was awesome in 2022. He was one of the best safeties in football. It was an incredible find by the Niners in the draft. This 5th-round pick out of USC, who very quickly emerges as one of the overall best safeties in the National Football League. And I am willing to roll the dice, and by dice I mean $20 million in guaranteed money, on Hufanga to get back to his pre-injury form 2 years removed now from that torn ACL. When September gets here, he'll be 22 months away from his ACL injury. I think at that point, we're going to see the 2022-2023 version of Hufanga way more than the guy we saw this past season. So I disagree wholeheartedly with the idea. Don't go to it. If it is not a very good signing by the Broncos. I think it is a good move by Denver. I like it a lot. I'm struggling to find a reason as to why it would not be a good move for Denver based on his history and not that big of a buy-in into it. All right. I think that's all we got on tap for today's episode. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. But before we sign off, we do have to name... let's go through the other worst signings the 33rd team had. And so then we'll name a random player or team. You'll see what I have in store for today. And then I can kiss you guys goodbye. So let's run through the other remaining 4 worst signings. Coming in at number 4, they've got one that I agree with, and that is Larry Ogunjobi. Because when the Bills signed him, they did not realize he'd be facing a 6-game suspension. So that's not aging too well. Dan Moore should be number 1. He was not good for the Steelers last year, and the Titans are paying him like he's one of the better tackles in football. He stunk out loud. Harold Landry took money over winning. It seems like he was really not too in love with the idea of signing with New England, but they threw a lot of cash his way. So probably a little bit of an overpay, but Landry still played very well. I know he tore his ACL 2 years ago, but didn't look like he slowed down too much the last 2 years. And then Javon Kinlaw, I don't think he got that big of a payday, did he? How much did Javon Kinlaw sign for? Let's do a quick Google search live on the show. Because if it's not that big of an investment, it can really... 3-year, 45. All right, I can kind of see that one because he really wasn't that good for the Niners. So before we sign off, we always do a name a random blank at the end of each episode, and we'll see if you and I say the same thing, team, person, whatever it may be. And since we spent so much time talking about the Niners today, I thought just name a random NFC team. So I've got one in mind. Let's see if you and I say the same one. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. Carolina Panthers. went with the low-key one. People forget they exist. Let me know if you said the Panthers as well in the comment section. But that will do it for us on today's Broncos Breakdown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video on your way out the door, and I'll see everyone later. All right. I don't know why that didn't get moved. Frustrating. Sorry. Okay. You guys get to see how the sausage is made from time to time. Let's try round 2. Is it on read only? Because it's in there. All right. Sorry, everyone. 1 second. We do have some super chats. Let's get to those super chats. Let's get to those super chats. You're absolutely right. So let's go in chronological order of when they arrived. Yep. Coach Chris, what's going on, Coach? Good afternoon. When the Broncos wake up, they piss excellence. I wake up each morning and I piss excellence. Why would you want your TV and your stereo on at the same time? Because I like to party. Time to take back the AFC West. This draft is going to be epic. The options are endless. Chris, thank you so much for the super. And I think you'll get a good kick out of the next segment, which is reacting to Kuiper and Jeremiah's mock draft, where I break down their picks and also just toss in my 2 cents here and there. But Coach Chris, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the super chat. Salute to you. It was great having you all week ago for free agency. Fravel Edits, longtime viewer. Hate the Hampton pick at number 20. Too big of a reach. If you are at number 20 and you don't want to trade up for Warren or Genty, trade down or draft best player available. So here's my overarching umbrella thoughts when it comes to draft. I am never going to go to war with you over a player's profile. If you don't like Hampton and I do, I don't have a crystal ball and you don't have a crystal ball. And we all know the draft is a crapshoot. It more or less is. There's plenty of draft examples of guys taken early that didn't work out. So I'm never in the business of telling you you're wrong for your opinion on a prospect. It might eat me up inside because I might think that guy is the bee's knees. But if you believe it, I can't say with any definitively I'm right and you're wrong. So I don't agree with you necessarily on the Hampton part, but I'm not going to fight you on it. As for the trading down part, it's always important to remember it takes 2 to trade. This does not strike me as a draft class that's so loaded with talent, teams would be willing to trade up. In fact, there's always going to be 32 players, unless there's tampering, that go in the first round of the draft. That does not mean all 32 players are looked at as a first round kind of quality player. First round talent. First round grade is the real buzzword that people use. There's usually about 20 players that have a first round grade. Meaning, hey, kind of regardless of the draft class, they'd go first round. That means the other 12 players go first round, but they are not looked at as a first round type of player, but someone's got to go. I think this draft class probably has closer to 15 than 20. So when you're picking 20, and there's only 15 guys that the league has a first round sticker next to their name on their big board for, who's going to trade up for someone they think is a second round talent just to get him in the first round and give up their second round pick? Not saying it won't happen, but that's my hurdle. As for BPA, I'll never argue against that. There's always some limitations to it. I don't think Denver should take a quarterback if they have the best player available remaining there at that spot, right? Would you take an edge rusher? You've got 2 good ones in Benito and Cooper, and up-and-coming guys in Ellis and Tillman. I'm asking you, Fravel Edits, if the number 1 player on Denver's big board was, say, Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, would you take him? BPA always sounds really fun until the best player available is at the least desired position for your team. We have a few more super chats here. We got Demented Tree. Demented Tree with a $2 super chat. We'll get that on screen for you in just a moment. Demented Tree. What illegal substances are you sending me? not sending you any illegal substances. Should come in, I don't know, let's say a week. I've kind of had this beef with the U.S. Post Office. If you guys want a quick story time before we start the next segment, basically I mailed out. First off, I write a ton of letters. I'm trying to bring the lost art of handwriting a letter back. If you ever want a letter, just let me know. And one time a viewer took me up on that. I was like, I'm going to New York. I got a flight to catch, so this video got to be quick. And someone's like, can I get a postcard? And I was like, you got it. So here I am in Times Square writing a postcard. But I mail stuff out almost on the daily, just writing family members, grandparents, friends. And I was like, I am the number one customer. I buy so many stamps for the USPS. And who better to sponsor my wedding invites than mailing it through them? And what do you know? I mail out a batch, and one gets to return to sender for no good reason. And if you've ever been married before, you know wedding invites are not cheap. I learned that this year. They are very expensive. That was quite the investment. And they just slapped this big black sticker right over the address, so I can't even use it anymore. I can't rip it off because it takes the whole thing off. I just wasted $3, 3 stamps. So if anyone from the USPS is watching right now, you're on my shit list because I'm your biggest fan, and you're screwing over your number one fan right now. I'm like the kid. You remember those commercials, Moose, where the kid would order it was always this commercial of like a magazine of zoo animals, and the postman would be walking up, and the kids would run down to meet him for the zoo animal magazine.
Moo, moo, zoo pals.
Zoo pal, yeah. I was like, that's me for my postman, and he let me down.
Oh my God, no! I'm so sorry.
Not the plates. You thinking of the
that's
plates?
That's the plates. The zoo pals make eating fun.
Yeah,
yes.
You know the magazine I'm talking about?
Yes. Zoo books.
Yes,
zoo books.
Exactly. And how excited the kids were to see the postman. That's me. I'm a 27-year-old man who wags his tail when he sees the postman. I check my mail daily, and they screwed me. Fravel edits with a $5 super, and then we're going to jump into our next segment. So let's hit this super chat, and then we will check out Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock drafts. Hold up. Wait a minute. Just taking a second to load here. Give it a moment. Nick saying the Denver Broncos should draft a center. So, Nick, that's a good thought. Take that take of yours and put hashtag Broncos at the end so we can talk about it during our mailbag. You know, the question doesn't have to be formatted like a traditional question. It can just be here's my idea, kind of thoughts on it, and bounce it off me a little bit. All right, edits. It's not that I don't like Hampton as a player. It's just he's a guy who you can get in the second round. I think you should draft receiver, DT, or corner at 20 if no trade. Okay. Well, edits, this is actually perfect because we're going to talk more or less almost exactly about this exact subject here of should you reach on Hampton at 20 if you think he's a round 2 guy? I've got some thoughts on it, and I've got some history on it. So that's coming up. Okay. So mock draft time coming up. Hashtag Broncos. Our mailbag will be right afterwards. We've already gotten a boatload of super chats, so if you want to guarantee your question or your take like Fravel edits is a part of the mailbag, super chat, and we'll throw it on for everyone watching to see. All right. Here we go. Mr. Moose, one of the newer sounds new, too new. I don't know. It's been 4 months now for
5 months.
5 months?
5 months.
I shortchanged you. I'm sorry.
But, you know, it still feels like I'm new considering that everybody else ahead of me has been here for a year plus.
Yeah.
So, like, when the newest round of new guys came in for you, between me and them, there's a wide gap. So, yes, I'm still considering
we need to get some newer people here because once you get the newbies, now you kind of feel like a sophomore and you want to haze the freshmen. All right? That's basically how everyone felt in college. All right. 144 people watching, 78 likes. Smash that like button down below, and let's get right into it. We're going to round up 2 NFL draft gurus, if you will, and their latest mock drafts following the first big wave of NFL free agency. Welcome on in to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, reacting to Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. So let's start with Kiper, the godfather in a lot of ways of the mock draft, and take the L3 off, and then we will jump over to Jeremiah's mock draft. But let's go with Kiper, starting with pick number 1, where he goes with Cam Ward for the Tennessee Titans. We can fast forward through some of these picks here. We've got Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders going next. Then you've got Travis Hunter, so a pair of CU players going in the top 4. And then we are looking for our friend Ashton Jeanty. He falls to the Raiders at number 6. If you're like, all right, missed out on Jeanty, how about Tyler Warren? Psych! He goes to the Jets at 7. So not an option there for the top running back and tight end in this class. How about Jackson Dart going round 1? And how about Jackson Dart going top 10 to the Saints? None of these other players have a huge, I wouldn't say link to the Broncos, with the exception of Omarion Hampton going to the Cowboys at 12. So we move along a little bit, inch our way closer to number 20, and we are almost there. Nope, don't go that far. As we've got Will Campbell and Colston Loveland going next. So no Warren, no Loveland, no Jeanty. What does Denver do at pick number 20? Drum roll, please. They are going to go with Tet McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. So what I want to do first is get you guys kind of familiar with McMillan, and then my kind of overarching thoughts on the whole thing. But this is a prospect we have not spent a ton of time talking about. So he's 6'4", 219 pounds. Fun fact for you, he was the highest ranked recruit in Arizona high school history, originally committed to Oregon, then opted to stay home. He's got plenty of accolades, but for an actual real breakdown of his profile as a prospect, I always like a good compliment sandwich. You can use this, by the way. It's a great way to, uplift a coworker or a friend. So, pro, con, pro. Pro, he's your traditional NFL size, right? 6'4", he ran about a 4.5 40-yard dash. So, not blazing speed, but not the slowest poke in the world. Con, he doesn't have that elite separation speed when he gets vertical. Right? If you're looking for him to really get some separation between himself and the DB on a pure go route, that's not in his repertoire. And that's okay. You don't have to have that. Courtland Sutton doesn't have that really, and he's still a very strong receiver for the Broncos. There are plenty of receivers who didn't have blazing 40-yard dashes and made up for it in a magnitude of other ways. Now, McMillan's stats are very impressive, especially the past 2 years. A lot of scouts say go off of 2023 more than 2024 because there is a slight step back. Receptions down, yards down, touchdowns down, drops up. One thing that Arizona people point to was he wasn't really 100% in 2024, and he was battling through an injury that just kind of nagged at him. So a lot of people are looking at 2023 McMillan for a better representation of his true self. Now that we know the player, T-Mac, let's talk about whether or not I like this pick by Kiper. It's not my preferred choice for 2 reasons. One, he's not my favorite receiver in this draft class, and Kiper passed on a receiver I prefer more, who we'll talk about later in the video, for McMillan. 2, it's not a very good wide receiver draft class. Does Denver need a receiver? Depending on who you ask, you'll get varying responses. I'd say, in the eyes of Sean and George Payton, not really. Why do I think that? They didn't make many moves for a receiver in free agency. If it was that pressing, they probably would have addressed it then. And this receiver class is one of the weaker ones that I really doubt their thought process was, you know what, let's bank on an underwhelming receiver class to fix any receiver problems we think we might have. So the fact that I don't think Denver thinks they need a receiver, and I don't think McMillan is the best receiver in this class, I'm having a tough time selling to you guys. I think this is a home run pick by the Broncos. In fact, I don't think any receiver in this draft class would have gone even first round last year. Like, you had Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. None of these guys jump out to me as first round receivers. None of these guys jump out to me as that's someone that you can really build your passing game around for the next 8 to 10 years. Would you have taken a receiver in round one? Not to say that's a high bar, but those are the expectations. So, not my preferred choice. That's my 2 cents on a McMillan selection. Now we're going to look at Jeremiah's selections for the Broncos next. But first, sound off for me. Do you think Denver should take a wide receiver at pick number 20? I'm going with no. I don't like this receiver class very much. I've got too many holes to poke in for them to use the 20th overall pick on. So for me, I'm passing, but feel free to disagree with me in the comment section below. Now let's look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, where he has a very similar start. In fact, he has identical start. It's Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, then Travis Hunter. Fast forward a little bit, he still has Genty going to the Raiders like Kuiper, but he does not have Warren going to the Jets. So could Warren fall to the Broncos? We move along, and we get a lot of different picks here now. Matthew Golden going to the Cowboys at number 12 instead of Omarion Hampton. And there's Tyler Warren falling to the Colts at 14. I think if Denver's going to get Warren, it's going to have to be a trade up with the Dolphins. I don't see Warren getting past Indianapolis. So we make our way towards the Broncos at 20. Maybe plan B is Colston Loveland, and he goes to Seattle 2 picks before. And with the 20th overall pick, the Denver Broncos select Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. And I know a certain viewer right now is throwing his phone across the screen because he does not like this selection. But let's do the same thing we did for McMillan for Hampton. Let's just get to know him first. At the combine, came in 6 foot, 221, ran a sub 4.5 40-yard dash. For someone whose perception is he's a bowling ball, he's a cannonball, he's a bruising back, he moved pretty quickly. Like, that was Audric Estime, right? He was a goal line back. He was someone who ran with physicality, and that showed with his very slow 40-yard dash. Now, Hampton's got great physicality. He requires a bunch of defenders to take him down, and he's got good burst and good speed to rattle off some longer runs. Back-to-back 1,000-plus, 1,500-plus yard seasons at North Carolina. There were concerns about when Drake May leaves, how will he fare since teams don't have to worry about the quarterback as much? And there was no regression from Hampton, right? He added on more yards and same 15 touchdowns. Listen, I think Hampton is what George Payton was trying to get out of Javonte Williams. And knowing that, if Payton has a big say, and I'm not in, obviously, Denver's war room, and I don't have a great feel as the percentage split between Sean and George, but I'm thinking it's not 50-50. I'm thinking it's probably 70-30 Sean over George. But if George Payton is looking for his next Javonte Williams because he feels like he didn't get it wrong with Javonte, the knee injury screwed him over. Well, here's another running back from North Carolina that plays a similar bruising style, but might be even faster than Williams. So this could be someone that George really zeroes in on. As for those of you that are saying, I don't want this pick because I've seen too many mock drafts where he goes in round 2. Thus, this is now a reach. I don't mind a reach pick at number 20. And this goes against a lot of the things that I believe when it comes to the draft. I love best player available. But let's say the best player available this year when you're on the clock at 20 is James Pierce from Tennessee. Are you going to take an edge rusher? You've got 4 good ones. Cooper, Benito. You took one last year, Jonah Ellis. DeAndre Tillman, who was playing in spring football, had like 5 sacks for you last season. Do you need another edge rusher? Because if you want best player available, there's a good chance the best player at 20 will be an edge rusher based on how loaded that draft class, that position group is. So I don't mind reaching on Hampton if you feel, and by you I mean George and Sean Payton, feel like he's going to be a great running back for you. Because there are so many running backs who teams took in round 2 that were super successful. Would it have been a reach if the Colts or Browns took Taylor or Chubb in round 1 or another team did? At the time, it would have said it. Looking back, it would have been a great pick. Imagine if a team took Derrick Henry in round 1. Would that have been called a reach then? Possibly. Would it be a reach now? Absolutely not. And last year, Sean Payton showed us he doesn't give a shit what you think. I thought Bo Nix was a round 2 guy. Sean Payton liked him. So what did he do? He didn't mess around. He didn't play tummy sticks. He went after his guy. If Hampton's his running back, right, and he feels like his defense is in a great spot after signing Hufanga and Greenlaw, and tight end's good with Evan Engram, the last squeaky wheel is running back. He doesn't want to, play the game of, yeah, we could get Hampton here, but we could also possibly get him in round 2, but we don't pick until the 50s in round 2. What if he goes before us? And what if we miss out on what we feel is like the last missing piece? Because we didn't want to be looked at as reaching for a player. So we took an edge rusher that we don't really need, and now we get a worse running back than we thought, and that running back's going to have a much greater influence on 2025 and beyond than this backup edge rusher because we went best player available when we already had 2 starting edge rushers. That's, the catch here. So which pick do you think was better, McMillan or Hampton? I'd go with Omarion Hampton. I like this pick more than T-Mac. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, we're going to run through the rest of Jeremiah and Kiper's mock draft in case you're wondering, all right, but who went from 21 to 32? So we can pick up with Jeremiah or Kiper. It doesn't matter to me, Moose. And let's start with Kiper at 21. You're right there. Go back to where you're. There it is. Yep. So Kiper at 21 goes with Derek Harmon out of Pittsburgh. Remember earlier I said that Matt McMillan was not my number 1 receiver? It's Matthew Golden. He's my favorite receiver in this draft class. Then he's got Emeka Ibuka going to the Packers, Jahdae Barron going to the Vikings. Meanwhile, Jeremiah over this same 4-pick slot, he has Jackson Dart going to the Steelers. Then McMillan going to the Chargers. Wow, stop me if you've heard this before. The Chargers go after a tall receiver who struggles with vertical speed. Mike Williams, Quentin Williams, it just keeps going on and on. Maxwell Harrison, and then Nick Eamon-Ward. Eamon-Ward would be a guy to watch for Denver at 20. Kiper, back to him, 25 to 28. I'm a little surprised to see how far Malachi Starks fell. Also, I don't know if they need some help, I guess, next to Kyle Hamilton, but they might go a different direction. Meanwhile, Jeremiah over this span, if the Broncos don't go receiver or running back, defensive tackle would be a very good spot. I would like Derek Harmon or Walter Nolan a lot, who ended up going to the Eagles to round out the first round in Kiper's mock. Meanwhile, in Jeremiah's last 4 selections for round 1, he has Shamir Stewart, who tested through the roof at Indianapolis, ending the first round of the draft. So if they're not going to go with the traditional or I wouldn't say traditional, but highly believed running back or tight end pick at number 20, I'd go interior defensive line. Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, just a few names for you guys to munch on. So before we sign off, since we talked about running backs a little bit today, name a current NFL running back. For the offseason, I thought since things can get a little bit dry, it'd be a fun way to end each video by just putting up a topic and then counting down from 3 and seeing if you and I say the same name. So with that in mind, I'm trying to think of one myself because I did not come prepared. Okay, I got one. Ready? Let's see if we say the same name. 3, 2, 1. Kenneth Walker, Seattle Seahawks running back. All right, that's going to do it for us on our video today. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out, and I'll see everyone tomorrow. We got a $50 super chat from Byron Lewis, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's go!
Byron Lewis. We'll toss that on screen for you. Thank you so much, Byron. Really appreciate your support of the channel. Another one from Fravel Edits as well. So a few super chats flying in. Mr. Lewis, have yourself a day. How do you feel about a double dip at running back, especially with the Ohio State duo? I probably wouldn't just bring both those backs over. I think you're looking to recreate the olden days. And I think it's best to close the yearbook. So I would not draft both Judkins and Henderson, but I wouldn't hate if Denver went running back in round one. Let's say they went Omari and Hampton in round one, and then they got like a Devin Neal out of Kansas in round 3. Maybe round 4. A guy who's maybe a little bit better of a pass catcher. I don't think you'd go Hampton and like Cam Scattaboo, because those are both kind of bruising backs, right? Those are both power backs, and you're not adding new skill sets to your running back room. But I'm open to the idea of taking 2 running backs with your top 4 picks in rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. I won't shut the door on that, but it's got to be the right 2. They got to complement each other quite nicely. However, with Estime getting picked last year, that seems like running back overkill and probably not too likely. Byron, thank you for your super chat. Shout out to you, man. We got another super chat from Fravel Edits. We'll throw that on screen. Maybe just me, but Hampton feels a lot like Javonte Williams pre-injury, which was good, but this RB class is very good. No need to reach on a running back. I'd prefer Caleb Johnson, Henderson, or Dylan Sampson over Hampton. Hey, I'm with you on Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. He's my RB2 here. Hampton's my RB3. And I don't disagree with the idea of it's a very good running back class. The guy you find in round 2 is not going to be very different than the guy you find in round 1. But the defensive tackle you get in round 1 could be different than the defensive tackle you get in round 2. It's kind of like the fantasy football way. This is the way I build my fantasy football roster. You can go quarterback in round 5 or receiver in round 5, and then the opposite in round 10. But if you combine the two, the quarterback you get in round 10 and the receiver you get in round 5 is going to be a much better duo than the quarterback in round 5 and the receiver in round 10. Does that make sense? You follow?
I follow. I have a very different approach. I usually draft quarterback like round 8 or round 9. That's
what I'm saying. I wait on quarterbacks.
Okay, I get. I see what you're saying.
Like
okay.
You could get, Kyler Murray in round 5, or you could wait and get Kirk Cousins in round 10. But the running back you get in round 5 because you didn't go with Kyler Murray is going to be way better than the backup running back you find in round 10. And the difference in the running backs will be vast, but the difference in quarterbacks won't be that large. And the same could be said for the draft here where like the difference in running back from round 1 to round 2 might be this big. But if you really want a receiver, the difference in receiver from round 1 to round 2 might be this big. That's what she said.
Giggity. The only way you're taking a quarterback in fantasy in round 5 is if you're drafting a guy like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen, he's not even around. Like the guy's, he is a cheat code. He is kind of worth that second or third round pick. But I always wait on quarterbacks because every year, like you get Jared Goffs and guys that just pop off and are top 5 quarterbacks that sometimes didn't even get drafted. So just got to do your homework and find those guys. All right. We got over 150 people hanging out with us today. Thank you all so much for watching. Mailbag coming up next. So use hashtag Broncos or Super Chat like you've seen from Byron and Fravel and so many others. And we'll throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. We are less than $10 away from $100 in Super Chats, which might be a Tuesday live show record. So can we beat our own record? It's going to be close to it for sure. All right.
Cannot stress this enough, by the way. If you want a question, Super Chat is the fastest way to get on the show.
Yep.
But have to use hashtag Broncos.
In the chat. So any question or take, please use hashtag Broncos. I got Jacob White in the chat, and I've got Anthony. I'm going to put both you guys on the hot spot right now. Send in a question, hashtag Broncos. It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be your opinion on a highly discussed subject. And then we'll discuss it on the show. And just go, here's what Anthony is thinking. here's my thoughts on the whole matter. We got Bradley hanging out with us here, Adam Valentine, Ty Man the Buckeye, Michael, Gary. Start getting those questions in. Hashtag, see, Jacob Smith, I'd take Nicky Manwari if we didn't get Hufanga. Okay, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. So get those questions in, hashtag Broncos or Super Chat. We can lead off with the Super Chats, Moose, as the questions begin to filter in for the hashtag Broncos.
We need more questions. We only have a few questions other than our Super Chats, so let's get a couple more questions in here before we get into our mailbag. We need as many as possible because we are so excited about the Broncos.
We got Buckeye DK here. Why would he move up and give up capital to get Genty? See, Buckeye, just take that. Slap hashtag Broncos on the end of it, and we can talk about that on the show. But I don't want to hold you guys hostage, so we want to get this mailbag underway. That way everyone can get back to their Tuesday afternoons. Jacob, appreciate your question. What's up, Sam?
Hashtag Broncos.
Uh-huh.
Can you say one nice thing about the Raiders?
Say one nice thing about the Raiders. That's what Sam wants me to say. I think the Pete Carroll hire was a good hire for them. They needed an adult. They did. They had been run by children. They had been run by Gruden and Mayock and their horrible draft picks. Then Josh McDaniels, who is this prima donna teen. And then Antonio Pierce, who was hired because everyone was mad they did not bring back, Rich Bisaccia. And they just wanted they basically wanted Herb Brooks.
They wanted a vibe.
Yeah, they just wanted speeches. Hire him for speeches. Bring him in every Sunday for a speech, but not Monday to Saturday. Pete Carroll, he might be old, and you can get your jokes off on that, but he is an actual competent coach who's going to get the Raiders on the right direction. The question really just becomes, will they have a good plan of succession in place? Or will they be like the Patriots, who go to Gerard Mayo, and they're like, we don't really like this the whole time. We kind of wish we could have gotten Mike Vrabel, but we didn't realize Vrabel would be released by the Titans, and so we're going to dump Mayo after one season. Is Mayo still unemployed?
Yes.
I think so. No one hired him? That's surprising. I thought he'd get some defensive position coach.
He was thrown in.
I felt bad for him. He got screwed.
That team sucked.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen.
Yeah.
They still didn't give up the most sacks in the league. That was the Bears.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Great point. Okay. We got some questions coming in. Bradley, like that question. We can definitely discuss that. And then we'll get to the other super chats and things like that. So let me know when you are ready, Mr. Moose. Really like Bradley's question about trading for Tyler Algier. We can definitely discuss that on the show.
Who said that one?
Bradley Baugh. Yep. Would you trade a 6 for, he means Tyler Algier, the Falcons running back, the backup for Bijan Robinson.
All right. I'm ready to rock.
All right, here we go. Let's jump into whatever you guys want to talk about. Before we start today's mailbag, quick reminder to go ahead, click that share button down below, put it on social media, send it to a friend, help us grow the channel. But welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you have a question you'd like to ask next time, join us then. But we can jump into some of the questions that we got during our mailbag today. Sorry, we can edit this out. Just a moment, everyone. Sorry. There it is. Ryan, first question. Will the Broncos make the playoffs? I am predicting pre-draft, and the draft can obviously influence this, 10-7. So 10-7, I think, is going to get you in. 10 wins, and you should feel pretty good about it, unless you're Seattle, because I don't think 10 wins got them in last season. Ryan, appreciate the question, though. Next one coming in. Sorry, everyone. From Bradley, would you trade a 6th-round pick for Falcons running back Tyler Algier? Yes, I would. Tyler Algier was a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie for the Falcons. Then Bijan comes along, and he sees a reduction in his role, but he still plays pretty well for the Dirty Birds the last 2 seasons as Bijan's understudy. For a 6th-round draft pick, I definitely roll the dice on Algier. I don't think we should look at Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, and like Blake Watson as roster locks. With the way the running back room played last year, everyone's hair should be on fire at that position in Denver. I would do this deal, Bradley. Mason, honest question for Broncos Country. Why is no one talking about getting a corner? Moss got hurt and was not good after, and when Moss was hurt, the depth was not good. Moss is good, but not a starter, in my opinion. Yeah, I disagree with you on that part there. Riley Moss was very good for a large portion of the year, and yes, he did miss 4 weeks with an injury, and sure, he wasn't fantastic afterwards, probably because he came back a little bit too early, and Denver really needed some help at that because they could not get anything out of the backups who took over, but I'm with you on Denver should add more corner depth, and I expect they will. In free agency still or the draft, I fully believe that there will be another cornerback, probably 2 minimum additions to be made. But I am going to push back on Riley Moss is not a starter. You should go after a new starting cornerback. No, Riley Moss was more or less a rookie last year since he barely saw the field at all his rookie season, and I think we're going to see him continue to grow and develop, and we can't just throw the towel in on guys when they have a bad 3 to 4 game stretch after a really good 10 to 12 game stretch. Mason, thank you for the question. Fravel edits. I personally love the McMillan pick. He's referencing Mel Kiper's mock draft. He's the best receiver in the class, in my opinion. Devon Vele is a solid depth receiver, but he's not a receiver too. Bo would cook with Sutton McMillan on the outside. The fun thing about receiver is they are the easiest position group to sell on anyone because all you got to do is say exactly what Fravel Edit said. It's like a Mad Lib. Insert quarterback, insert pre-existing receiver, insert rookie receiver, would cook. And no one's going to disagree because that looks like a lot of fun for sure. I don't think I'm trying to sell Vele as wide receiver 2. I think you're forgetting Marvin Mims. I thought he played outstanding the last third of the season. And I don't think McMillan is going to be that great of a receiver at the next level. So if they're going to pick one, I'd like it to be Matthew Golden from Texas. Aiden, what is your mock draft for the Broncos this year, and what do you think of Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee and Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon? I'll have a more precise mock draft probably at the beginning of April. That way all the dust from free agency is settled. But right now I think running back is a huge target for them with their first 2 selections. But if, let's say, Genty and Hampton go before 20, and a lot of people think those are the top 2 backs, then the Broncos are a wild card. They could look to trade back. Do they take a receiver just to add more, talent around Bo Nix? I think there's a real doomsday scenario where Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, Omarion Hampton, and Colston Loveland go 1 through 19. And we're going to find out what Denver was plan D, E, F, or G is, which if it were up to me, it'd be one of the interior defensive linemen. This is a loaded DT class. As for Dylan Sampson, I think he's a very powerful back, but not just powerful. He's got good burst. He's got good long speed. He had 20-plus touchdowns for Tennessee last year. That's hard to do on accident, and he didn't get those touchdowns by just being like a Mike Tolbert goal line merchant. So I like Sampson out of Tennessee. I think he'd be a fun get in round 3 or round 4. As for Ferguson, solid acquisition to pair him back with Bo Nix. I just don't know enough to go in depth on him like I do for Sampson. Senior Bronco. Any chance the Broncos trade for Trayvon Walker? Heard the Jags may be shopping him. I did see on Twitter, and I'm not going to say that the source is a very, very credible source. I think it originated with the Walter Football guy, and then it was picked up by Sleeper Jaguars, which is like the Sleeper app for fantasy football. So do with that information what you will. But Walker is never going to live up to first overall pick expectations, but he's quietly been very good for the Jags. I mean, for starters, back-to-back 10-plus sack seasons. 2, the availability is outstanding. He's missed 2 games his entire 3-year NFL career thus far. So Walker may not be what you expect out of the first overall pick in the draft, but I think he's going to be a very good player in this league. I don't expect Denver to make the seismic move needed to obtain Walker. They've got 2 great edge rushers, and Bonito and Compton. Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. Walker, you could argue, might be better than Cooper, but you just extended Cooper. And Bonito's cheaping on his rookie deal, you're really going to trade for Walker to push Benito down the depth chart and then give up the draft capital required for Walker, which could have helped you elsewhere? I don't think this is a possibility for Denver. I'm not buying this stock right here. Senior Bronco, thank you for the question, though. Moving on to our next question. We got some super chats I believe we can get to. Okay. Ask how to get a new one. Michael, do you think we will trade for a running back? Unlikely. I would think it'd be borderline a bad idea. I like the Algier trade because it was a 6th rounder, but using, serious draft capital in a trade for a running back when it's a great running back class is just silly to me. Go get a rookie running back who's got 4, maybe 5 years on his rookie contract in front of you, and for way less than what you can find elsewhere. So I don't think Denver's going to trade for a back. I think they might still look to add a back in free agency. That back would likely be someone who's good in pass protection and as a receiver to alleviate some of those responsibilities from a rookie running back who does not really thrive in pass protection and receiving, because those are things that take a little bit of time for running backs to learn. Michael, thank you for your question, though. I really appreciate it. We got some super chats here. How do you feel about a double dip at running back, especially with the Ohio State duo? I'm not looking to pick up Judkins and Henderson and bring them over to Denver, but I am okay with the idea of double dipping at running back. It was that bad of a room last year. Javonte Williams led the Broncos in rushing yards. His performance last year was one of the worst leading rushing performances for a team in recent NFL history. Only worse was, I think, Rex Burkhardt from the Texans back in 2020. So I don't mind the overkill. Round 1 and round 4, right? Find 2 players that complement each other that have differences in their game style. But I don't hate the idea, Byron. Thank you for your super chat, by the way. Fravel edits, maybe just me, but Amarian Hampton feels a lot like Javonte Williams pre-injury. Let's say he is Javonte Williams pre-injury. We only got 1 year, rookie year. Was that a bad rookie season? There were plenty of flashes that rookie year. I know people are probably having higher expectations for the second rounder, but for a guy that split touches with Melvin Gordon, I thought he looked pretty good when his number was called. So I don't know if that's the insult you might think it is. But I do agree that I'd prefer Caleb Johnson from Iowa. He's my RB2 in this class. It goes Genty, Caleb Johnson, Omari, and Hampton. Coach Chris, when the Broncos wake up, they piss excellence. Time to take back the AFC West. This draft is going to be epic. The options are endless. This draft's going to be a wild card. Picking at 20, doesn't matter what your needs are. You don't know what's going to come for you, right? You have no idea who's going to be available. With 19 teams picking in front of you, you can't put all your eggs in even one or two baskets. There's a real possibility Genty, Warren, Loveland, and Omari and Hampton, the top 2 running backs and top 2 tight ends, Denver's 2 biggest needs going into the offseason, are taken. And then you got to figure out what plan C is. D, E, wherever we are in the alphabet. And I think I said this earlier, I'd be on board with a defensive tackle. You brought back DJ Jones. He's still 30 years old. I think it'd be a good idea to bring in some youth at the interior spot on the defensive line. Chris, thank you so much for your super chat. Michael, think we draft a punter this year? Nah, I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. That's a tough bet to make for how uncommon it is. And there's no real punt god, right? You had Matt Araiza from San Diego State. Then you had Torrey Taylor from Iowa last year go to the Bears. I don't think there's a punt god in this draft class. So probably wait till after draft and sign was a UDFA. Jacob, I might be late, but what's the update on Marvin Mims? Is there an update to be had? I mean, we're filming this right now Tuesday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. I don't know of any bad Marvin Mims news. You're freaking me out right now, Jacob. I got nothing for you. The update is he had a really good end of the year. Am I missing something here? Yeah, I got nothing for you, Jacob. Sorry. Sam, I need Justin Simmons back in my life. Will it happen? Probably not. I don't think Sean Payton is looking to hire. I don't think Sean Payton is looking to sign another pricey-ish veteran safety. That's just a position group that's not high up on teams' priority lists often. And it's important enough to invest $45 million for Hufanga. It's not important enough to invest $45 million in Hufanga, your pre-existing contract with Brandon Jones, and then tack on probably a 1 year, $7, $8, $9 million deal with Simmons. So I don't think Justin Simmons is coming back to Denver this offseason. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's mailbag. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe. That way you can be a part of the next mailbag and ask your questions. All right. We're all caught up on supers. Thank you to everyone who got some questions in. Hope you guys enjoyed the mailbag. Can we get to $100 in super chats? We are at $91.99. It would be a channel record for a Tuesday live show to break 100, but if not a problem. Already appreciate more than you know all the support and liking and commenting you guys have shown the channel during our live show today. In the meantime, I'll just respond to a couple of the questions I couldn't get to here. I would rather take Luther Bird in the first than Cam Scattaboo. I'm with you on the Luther Burden over Scattaboo part, but I would not take either in the first round, to be honest. I'm not very high on either prospect for the 20th overall pick. Rounds 2 or 3, talk to me then. Ramon, if we were to go wide receiver in the first round, who would be your first choice? Matthew Golden. The Texas receiver is my favorite receiver in this draft class. I'm not going to say he's going to be a star at the next level. I think he's going to be a very, very good contributor for a team. That would be my preferred pick for the Broncos. All right. That will do it for us on today's live show. For everyone that tunes in, you guys are awesome. For the super chats, I love you more than you know. Thank you so much for showing all of your support to the channel. We will sign off. We'll let you get on with the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll have more Broncos content all week long.